How did you cheat school? In this exam, I had to submit 3 essays in 3 answer booklets. Only wrote 2 essays. Hid the empty booklet. 2 weeks later, the exam markers asked if I had submitted 3 essays. I said yes. They assumed they lost 1 book, so upped my marks. This was for the final year of high school and directly helped me get to university. Edit, also in Chinese class, which nobody cared about, the final test was 1 page of Chinese to English and 1 page of English to Chinese. The phrases were the same in both. As long as you had slight familiarity, you could just copy the questions from 1 page down as answers to the 2nd page. Still, I was the only one who worked this out, so got an award for topping the year. Not actually cheating, but it felt like it. I was in summer school 1 year because I was lazy and never did any work during the year. The entire summer school was on a computer and was estimated to take 3 to 4 weeks, 4 hours a day, 5 days a week. So after about an hour of doing the computer program, I notice you can skip the section you're on and take a shot at the test, and if you pass the test you pass the section. The test had 10 questions and you could try 3 times before you were required to read the section. I tried the test twice and realized it didn't have a large pool of questions to choose from and would repeat some questions when you retook the test, but the best part was it would tell you what the answer was if you got something wrong. Bingo. I learned that if you took the test twice you were guaranteed to have at least 8 of the answers, which would give you an 80% passing grade on the test. I passed summer school in less than 8 hours and no teacher raised a red flag, and I got to enjoy my summer. I cheated the system. 10 tenths would do again. I got lucky making a really risky gambit in high school. I had a really shitty Spanish language teacher in 10th grade. She told us a portion of the final exam would be a spoken exam where we have to have a conversation in Spanish on a particular topic. We were given a sheet with 15 potential topics, and said she'd be dropping them into a hat on slips of paper and randomly selecting one. I hated Spanish at this point, so I came up with a crazy idea and banked everything on it. I immediately volunteered to go first on spoken part, which was the next day, and studied everything I would need to know for only topics number 1 and number 15. This teacher was extremely scatterbrained and I was hoping she wouldn't shuffle her pile before selecting one out of the hat. Sure enough, I couldn't believe my luck when she took the stack of paper slips, plopped it in the hat and immediately pulled topic number 1 off the top. I got a 95/100ths on the spoken portion. My favorite part is that this isn't even technically cheating, I just predicted incompetence and capitalized on it. I went to a poor Catholic school. In 8th grade every classroom got a computer, which was a big deal. The only issue was no one knew how to set them up. I said I did. I didn't, but I wore glasses and liked video games and Star Wars enough that they believed me. Teaching myself as I went, I set up all GE computers in the school and became the official IT department of the school. Anytime there was an issue I got called out of class. Score. I then realized that there was a simple setting that stopped some programs from running. I forget now, but it had something to do with color. I figured out that I could fix the problem by changing that setting. But I could also set it to restore to the previous setting in 2 weeks. Every 2 weeks the computer would break again. With a computer in every classroom, all on different reset schedules, I got called out to fix a computer most days. Not really cheating, but on my 8th grade science midterm I abcadabued the entire test so that I could leave school early and go to the Rangers ticker tape parade in Manhattan. It was 1994 and I was young and ignorant. I got a 70 with my method, thanks Who's the Man, on the exam, and my classmate scored a 40 by choosing C all the way down. As he stated, when in doubt choose C. We did our homework as a group where everyone did what they were good at. My friend did algebra and geometry, I did chemistry, biology, Russian and English, other kids did physics, geography, history, and so on. We cannot choose classes in Russia, we have to study everything in full measure. So in high school there is sometimes too much homework each day for one person to do it all and still have some time to live, so we've been sharing the burden for about 3 years. Never got caught, surprisingly. My chem teacher told us how she cheated in college. Basically, in order to obtain her PhD in organic chemistry, she needed to pass a mid-level French class. It wasn't too hard of a class, but my chem teacher was not very good at French. A few weeks before the end of the semester, her teacher told the class how the final exam was going to work. Each student had been using a copy of a French textbook filled with random passages in French. 2 weeks before the final, the French teacher took every copy from the students, photocopied random French passages from the book, and then gave the book back to the students. You were supposed to study the textbook inside and out, and come the day of the test, be prepared to translate any passage perfectly from French to English. But here's how my chem teacher cheated. The night before the teacher photocopied the class books, my chem teacher put a small dot of silver nitrate on the corner of every page in the book. Silver nitrate, when exposed to intense light, perhaps a photocopy machine, turns a lighter color than its usual black shade. My chem teacher found the page with the lighter dot, and studied that page. TLDR, chem teacher chemistry'd the FCK out of French. Edit, punctuation. Edit 2, yes, it does seem weird that the teacher photocopied every single class book. I will ask my chem teacher tomorrow more about it, but my inferences are either A, it was a very small class, or B, this way of taking the exam only applied to my teacher, maybe it was a make-up exam. We paid a smart kid in first period to copy all of his answers on the history test. He was a trusted office helper and had access to the copy machine. He would give them to us at lunch. We would just randomly change a few answers so it wasn't obvious. Made an A that semester without learning a single thing. Every Friday I had a history test third period. Every Friday I had English first period, and it was a free reading, just sit anywhere, type of thing. The wall between those classes was a thin, temporary, kind of fold-up wall. So I would sit against this temporary wall, and read, and listen, and when I heard the history teacher loudly proclaim, "Time's up. Pass your tests forward," I would pull out a piece of paper and a pencil. You see, this history teacher wasn't going to grade the tests himself, he had us grade each other's exams by shuffling them and passing them back out, and then reading the answers, out loud, so everyone could grade some other person's test they had just been handed. So I sat in English class and got every answer to the test first period. Second period I would memorize the list by reading it in between sections of taking notes, or whenever there was some downtime. Third period comes along, I don't need a cheat sheet, I don't even need to hear the questions. And honestly I don't feel bad about it, had he just graded the 10-question quiz himself I would have had to study. Due to health reasons I was homeschooled for 1 year in high school. Their version of homeschooling? One of the sports coaches would stop by once a week to deliver me schoolwork and administer tests. Except he was busy, you know, coaching. The first month or so he'd show, but eventually he just stopped. Near the end of the semester he asked me what grade I thought I deserved. I did literally none of the work assigned. I said A. He was like sure, but he put down a C for math since he knew I was bad at it, so it seemed real. I was okay with that since I did nothing. I think he took pity on me in retrospect due to said medical issues, but that was the year I realized how much of a joke school was. I put in as little effort as necessary when I went back. Not really a cheat, but I've found using Google's speech-to-text function to be a lifesaver. I could sit down with all my reference materials, speak for 4 to 5 minutes, define my thesis and end up with a relatively normal 7 to 8 page essay. When you're about to lose 10 points for a paper being late and can sacrifice a bit of organization, and a bit of quality, let Google write for you. In boarding school a group of us got our hands on the question for our final English exam, based on a book we were reading. Spent the next week writing the best paper I could before the actual exam. I used a small razor blade and cut one of the blank pages out of the book we were reading that semester, and able to take into the exam, and copied the exact font, spacing, page margins etc. and printed the paper I had written onto it. Stuck it in the middle of the book. Walked into the exam, the teacher checked my book for notes and found nothing. Copied it out word for word during the exam and then pulled a page out and ate it. Got a C. Edit, I scribbled this on a post-in r/new before going to work and came home to this. A little explanation, I ate the page because I was paranoid they'd check my pockets or something when I left the exam room. They didn't. We had to leave the book in the exam room when we left, so I didn't leave it in there. I didn't have the answers to the exam, just the essay question. I was never good at English, so that's the best I could manage even with the time to prepare. For bonus points, one of my friends also cheated on an oral presentation. He recorded himself doing his whole presentation on his iPod. In his presentation he was a Muslim, so he got in character by using traditional Muslim dress. He put the iPod on his head under a turban and played his presentation into his own ears and just repeated himself. Worked okay and he didn't get caught either. French oral exam, I just stared at my teacher until she gave me an answer and then I said it. Got a B, so worked well enough, was predicted a D. I used the fact that I had early acceptance to art school as ammo to convince my guidance counselor I didn't need any more math classes. I didn't realize at the time going to art school meant I'd be working in retail and should have used all the practice I could get. Edited for grammar I clearly didn't learn either. I used to show up to the school about 20 minutes after class had already started and go to the main office to get a late slip. They'd give me my slip and keep a carbon copy. I wouldn't go to class, and when the attendants got to the office they would mark me late, not absent. Never failed. Back in high school I would do the old data file switcheroo. Basically change MP3 to doc on any song file I named after the assignment. So BarbieGirl.mp3 would become essay.doc. The essay would show as corrupted when the teacher tried to open it. This stalled me an extra day to complete the assignment. It was part of my emergency toolbox. Not me, but rather someone I went to high school with. The student in question wore a hijab because of her Muslim faith. Well, on test days in our maths classes, she would download an MP3 track with maths formulas she had recorded onto her iPod, put on her earbuds and cover them up with her hijab, take the test, and then ace it. I only knew about this because I accidentally walked in on her in the bathroom putting in her earbuds, but I didn't tell the teacher because I thought her method of cheating on tests was fucking brilliant. Yeah, I was too honorable for my own good back then. Edit, there were a couple of things I wanted to change. And just for clarification, yes, I know maths is a British term. I'm American, but I'm a huge Anglophile who has been using British terms and slang since she was 8. A couple of years ago, at the beginning of the whole Michelle Obama no fun food allowed thing where they took all the vending machines and replaced all the drinks with shitty diet versions and our school lunches got worse and they stopped selling any kind of sweet thing at all, I took advantage of the demand. I sold donuts and made quite a bit of money. In the class period right before lunch, I had an academy class. It means I would leave my school to take a class at a nearby school that my school didn't offer. In this case it was auto shop with a really chill teacher. I'd stop by Giant on the way there and buy 4 boxes of a dozen donuts for 50 cents a donut, and then sell them for $1 each in auto shop. The teacher also, probably still, sells soda out of his office, so we accidentally created a restaurant. I had to bribe him with a free donut to allow me to sell in class, but it was worth. Then he'd take all the leftover donuts, about half, and sell them at my own school, where I would show up during lunch. I'd hide in one of the side hallways near the band/theater areas and kids would know to find me there. It was a big business. I only misjudged and didn't sell out maybe 3 times out of the 6 months or so I'd do this. Kids would buy Soix donuts and resell them for $1.50 in their own classrooms. I became a donut pusher. Sometimes demand was so high that I could buy 6 boxes of donuts at the beginning of the day, and make $30 for about 8 minutes of actual work. On snow days or weird scheduled days or for special requests, I would charge $2. And kids would pay it. I made a good chunk of cash off of this and never got in trouble. I even sold one donut to the school cop near the end of the year. Senior year of high school we had to write a research paper. Spent almost all year on it. Was supposed to be like 10 pages or something. I goofed off and said fuck it. Time comes to turn it in and I turn in one of those clear folder things with just a cover sheet in it. A week later the teacher comes to me and tells me she lost my paper and needs me to reprint it and bring it in tomorrow. I tell her no problem and go home. Next day I come in and tell her that it had been written on my mom's computer, only computer in the house, and that my mom had already deleted it. Sounded really sad and asked what I was supposed to do now. I couldn't write a new report that quick. I had spent all year on it. She says she will take my average from the other assignments we had done and that would be my grade for the paper. Walked away with a 93% on the paper. I realized I had forgotten to do my required community service, 20 hours I think, just a couple days before the report was due, and so I asked a girl to sign off on hours at the nursing home she worked at. I had another friend read over the essay I wrote about the experience for any plot holes, and at the end she looked at me and said, "Okay, you win the Golden Shovel Award. That was the best bullshit I've ever seen in my life." For the record, I ended up doing community service at a nursing home later, just to do it. I'm not anti-community service, I just wasn't very good at managing long deadlines on projects like that. In high school, I'm in college now. I have never cheated in college and never will. It's never worth it. In Spanish class we were given 20 words to memorize weekly and had to spell them correctly on every test. I wrote every word on a small piece of ripped paper and half covered it with my thigh. When the teacher walked by I would close my legs, hiding it. Always looking directly down for the entire test facing the desk. I could look at the test and the paper without moving my head. I remember telling a couple people about it and it worked flawlessly for them too. Also, I always made sure I purposely misspelled 1 to 2 words every now and then because that's obvious as fuck if I got 100% on every test. This way, if the teacher called me out or asked me something and I didn't know the words at all, that would raise red flags. I made damn sure I always got as though. Easy. Back in elementary school we had to take tests on books we were reading. They were called accelerated reading tests and every book in our library was given a certain amount of points and a level. The level indicated the difficulty and the grade level you should be reading at. Typically the longer the book and the higher the level, the higher the points. Every student was given a login to this website to take the exams, and you could take them during any time throughout the day if you had free time. During 3rd through 5th grade I had a goal for points that was around 50 to 70. So that would be roughly 15 books a semester I'd have to read if I read short chapter books. I found a cheat to the system though. Harry Potter books were worth about 30 to 40 points. I never read the Harry Potter books, but my classmates were reading them. I would bring my classmates fruit snacks for lunch or other treats and they would end up taking the tests for me while I didn't have to read any books at all. I went my whole 3rd, 5th grade career reading no books and reaching my points goal just by paying classmates who were actually reading books to take the tests for me. It's incredible just how far a small bribe like a fruit snack can go.